Welcome to our third video on expressing an idea through sculpture with hand building. So far you learned a little bit about the project, analyzed one of my pieces, you created some of your own ideas in writing, and then you looked at different hand building basic techniques. Today we're going to talk about how you can start to sketch out what you'd like to create, and then how I want you to do your final sketch so that you're ready to start in clay. What you see on the screen, these are some of my ideas related to a piece that I'm going to be working on. So I'm focusing on this theme of being a mother for the first time. I wanted to focus on this connection between mother and child, and this idea of holding your head really close to your baby's head and that closeness that you feel of your cheeks kind of touching each other. So if you look at the way that I sketched, every person brainstorms and sketches differently. I did a lot of writing here. Sometimes that's really helpful, and that's why I had you do the writing activity to begin with. So you have lots of different symbols and things that are in your writing that you can use to help you come up with your idea. So if you talked about things like holding, or the bond, or touching faces, like any of those things become symbols that you can use in your work of art. So my idea of this closeness with my son, I knew I wanted to have at least 2 eggs, a large and a small, to represent mother and son. In this case, I'm planning on having some facial elements. Haven't completely figured out how many of those I'm going to have, but for now I know I'm going to have these 2 faces near each other like what you see in my reference photo here. I thought about a couple different ways to portray it. One was this idea of being inside of this egg. So when you look down into the egg, you see these 2 creatures, these 2 people kind of intertwined, because the egg is a very close space. It's very whole, it's very connected and safe. And I was thinking of either having it be a wall piece or having something that sits on the table that you look at. The other direction I wanted to go in with this idea was potentially having these 2 come out of some kind of flower element. So you can see I sketched both of those ideas off to the side. In this one I have lots of petals that kind of wrap around and it curves down. In this side it's maybe a little bit straighter, but I'm thinking it would be hanging on the wall. I think a danger with this would be the fragility of it because of this element that comes down. So when you look at my initial sketches, I have 4 of them. They're all really basic. Like here, you don't even see faces on these figures. That's okay. It's more about you planning out the idea. What are the symbols you're going to use? And even if it's not recognizable, you can always write what they are next to it. That's where reference photos come in and further practice as we develop our piece. Once you have your 4 ideas, I'm going to ask you to try and submit those. Or if you feel ready, you can do your final sketch. So once again, my sketch is not gorgeous. The faces actually look a little bit terrifying. But in this final sketch, I know what techniques I'm planning on using. That's what I really want you to focus on with this final sketch. So remember, we had that list that we looked at with all of those techniques. I want you to write with arrows and show me which techniques you're going to use and where, so I know that you have an idea of how to start constructing this. Don't worry, there'll be other technique videos to show you in more detail those other techniques. But for instance, I have 2 pinch pots for these 2 heads, 4 pinch pots actually, 2 for each. I figured these petal pieces would be more soft slab, and then I knew that this element would be a coil. It will probably be a thick coil up near the top and then fade down into a thin coil as it goes. So at this point, you're taking your initial ideas, starting to sketch. I want to see at least 4 ideas sketched, and then I want to see your final sketch, the one you like the most, with the techniques that you're thinking of using. I look forward to seeing your next step.